Hello, everyone. Welcome to Revenue Systems Decoded, where we unpack the strategies and systems that drive B2B tech growth today. Each episode will bring you actionable insights from founders, CEOs, and sales leaders who've built successful revenue engines. So, whether you're scaling a startup or optimizing an established tech company, you will learn battle tested approaches to building and operating outbound revenue systems. I'm Olivier, and today I'm joined by Frank, aka the Bacon Forge from Salesforge. Thank you so much for joining, Frank. Please feel free to introduce yourself.
Yeah, if somebody that doesn't know what Bacon Forge means, it's actually just our office name, Bacon Forge. Decided to give it a name, and because it's a forge, so we're all about bacon and helping companies to bring home the bacon. It has to be Bacon Forge. Anyway, so yeah, I'm Frank. I've been in software sales for over 10 years, always typically in frontline sales. So just think a guy that keeps on selling and building pipeline and closing deals, whatever. Predominantly, actually, full sales cycle is the experience. So my initial career started at Google, and Google is a fantastic sort of digital academy to really kick off all the knowledge on how things work, especially in ad tracking and the gazillions of different things. And the things you're going to also see in Google, you're never going to see out there on the web. So it's interesting to see how the big machine, cash machine is kind of spinning and the automations that are being done, etc. You always feel like everything's automated. Humans barely do anything. And you're like, you're just one of the faces of the machine, right? But everything's automated at Google. And then, yeah, so after that, I transitioned for a bunch of software companies. So SimilarWeb, some people may know SimilarWeb. You can just check the traffic data on any company. Pretty cool stuff. This is where I got my head into how to compete, and I have a lot of competitors today. And how do you think about competition? How do you increase your mind share, whatever, traffic share, search share, whatever. And then I worked for a machine learning company, so enterprise sales, and that's the old school AI. It still exists. So machine learning to predict something is still very powerful. And then I was poached by a company called Watergraph to become their VP sales. I was really on the fence between, frontline sales and then managing a 50 people sales team. So I had to scale it from about 15 people to 50, which I did. And then I was like, do I really want to be a manager? And, there's always that, decision in your life. Like, do you want to be just a subject matter expert, in a particular field and just do your thing and just be an IC? An ideal, individual contributor, or do you want to be a manager, managing a team, etc.? And yeah, I'm typically the person that thrives in the zone of being uncomfortable, as in you learn something new, right? So then I thought to myself, damn, I've been doing frontline selling for so long. Maybe let's do that. Even though the caveat there is that if you join, if you're top sales rep typically in a company and then you become, let's say VP sales, which is what I did, you always earn less than the top sales rep in your team. So just one little tip there. Sales management doesn't necessarily mean you're earning a lot more money. If you're just about making as much money as possible, just be a top account exec in some sort of cool company. And then so I was a VP sales for about a couple of years. Was a really good ride. Took the company from C to Series A. Exited, and then after a couple of years, and then I thought to myself, there was this sort of epiphany moment when I was a VP sales that, damn, I'm scaling from 15 people to about 50 people. And I always felt like the main lever to increase more pipeline results was literally just adding more headcount. And I didn't think that was really the right way to look at sort of unit economics of growing a company, and we have to grow a ton of headcount. So I thought to myself, why wouldn't the software stack just scale a lot more? Why do I need all those bodies plugged in? And so this is where I exited, and I thought to myself, damn. So that was the problem that I had. So I had two kind of choices in my life at that moment when I exited. I could have become the head of sales of another company with the fattest OT. OT means on target earnings. Or I could just start a company and be just poor, because you earn nothing. And just like I mentioned, I like to thrive. I'm thriving typically in where I'm not comfortable because I'm learning something new and it feels like a challenge. I was like, damn, let's forget the head of sales job, even though it would pay me, I think it was 250K in OTE. So quite a fat compensation, especially for Europe. And then I thought to myself, nah, let me just start a startup, be poor, and see how that's going to go. And yeah, if you're thinking about starting a company, try and start a company with the sort of domain expertise that you have in some sort of area. So just kind of to finish off here, when you think of starting a company, my domain expertise was sort of maybe in sort of three areas really. Marketing technology, because I used to sell a lot of marketing technology to a lot of marketing people. Sales technology, because I used a lot of sales tech, to do my job. from a sales leadership standpoint and being, frontline sales rep. And then the last thing was actually travel technology. So I used to work a lot in travel tech. And then you just kind of think in your head, okay, there's a high likelihood of success, and where do you see a lot of things being broken in which sort of verticals? I thought that Martech was flooded with software, like literally flooded, and I thought that there's just no way you're gonna make something big in there. It's just unlikely, right? Doesn't matter what problem. There's just too much software in there. Travel technology, the margins are very, very tight, and they're being dominated by companies like Booking.com, Expedia. There's a lot of already monopoly there. It doesn't feel like you're ever going to build a big business. So I always was thinking like, oh, where could I build a billion-dollar business? So like big business. Not possible, I think, in travel tech. Not really possible in MarTech, I feel like. And then sales technology. And I was like, what's broken in sales technology? And then I was like, remembering my days, with all that huge headcount. And it's like, damn, that's exactly what I want to solve. I want to build a software stack where you can scale pipeline with the least humans possible. And that's what I'm going to be onto it. And I bet if I'm going to pitch this to a VP sales or a CFO or a CEO, people are going to love that. It's going to sell like crazy. And that's it. So in the first year, we scaled from $0 to $3 million. We built like 7 softwares in the last 2 years. So company exists for about 2.5 years, 40 plus employees, profitable, but we are VC backed, which is a weird thing about us. There is like $500,000, and then we're still looking to raise a Series A at some point as well.
Amazing. That's quite a journey so far, I would say. So that's very nice. So yeah, thank you again for joining, because I think that we can unpack a lot of your experience and learnings in this episode to help other startup founders or maybe even existing sales leaders go into this journey of scaling outcomes without having to scale headcounts, because I'm also a personal advocate for that, right? And I've always been, even when in my early days, I was outperforming existing BDR teams by 2, 3, 4, maybe 10 times sometimes of the bigger competitors, right? In terms of meetings booked. So yeah, I highly believe in it. So maybe take us through the top of how can an existing revenue leader go and achieve that, right? So let's say I have 10 SDRs, and obviously we're never hitting pipeline quota, because I think there's only most likely a couple of people hitting the quota ever. And if so, they increase it if everyone hits it, right? Because the goal is not to hit it, apparently. But other than that, just what's your perspective on, I want to, looking at the unit economic metrics, get the most ROI for my budget that I have as a revenue leader on the pipeline segment?
Yeah, so typically in a board meeting, you would discuss, how much does it cost us to acquire a net new ARR dollar, essentially. Different companies will look at sort of different metrics. So for somebody spending $2 to acquire with $1 in ARR is totally fine. For somebody, they want to spend only 50 cents to acquire a net new dollar. Like there's all these sort of conversations, but like you have to think about the cost of customer acquisition, which is CAC, essentially. That's really what the metric that we're going after. So within that, naturally, there's typically marketing and sales, right? So you have to look at what's called the fully loaded CAC. That means ad spend, that means human labor, software costs. All of that goes into the CAC. And so this is what I was thinking back then, what is it that I can improve? And I thought to myself, I can't do much about the ad spend. Sure, you can optimize here and there. But like what you can definitely do is figure out a way of driving high output levels with the fewest possible humans. So like today, just kind of give you an example. Back then, I had a sales team of 50. Now I have a sales team of 5. My sales team of 5 produces more output than my sales team of 50 back then. So this is how times could change. Sure, it's a different business, but we have a very similar also dynamics, as in high velocity, which back then I did high velocity as well. We have global TAM there as well. So there are these also kind of similarities there. So which is why I'm comfortably can say that you can reduce 10x your team and still increase pipeline. And I think, when you have a problem, so let's say sales development, so pipeline building or some other problem, I would highly recommend to follow some sort of structure of how to solve your problems that you have in the business. So when you have a problem, I typically would say that today, with everything that's happening in the world of AI, large language models, and AI agents, etc., try and find an off-the-shelf solution, an agentic solution that you can plug in and instantly see value without actually hiring people. If that off-the-shelf solution exists, you'll be stupid not to kind of go test it, try it, etc. If that doesn't exist, I typically say try a solution two. Solution two would be build your own custom agents or systems, essentially on a automation sort of backbone engine like NA10, Make.com, etc. Essentially, both of them are all about heavy automation, AI, whatever you name it, but essentially it does not assume that you're adding a lot of headcount. Sure, you will need to maybe, let's say on solution 2, get a person that will build these NA10 workflows. Yes, so there isn't, let's call it, an upfront cost. Sure, there's a maintenance cost. But if you're able to reduce your FTEs from, let's say, 10 SDRs that you mentioned down to 8, you'll be very happy that you had this upfront cost and sure, even the maintenance cost, and you're able to reduce reps by X. Option 3 is so if you're not into AI agents, automation, there's some sort of blockers there. Option 3 is to hire people like Olivier, as in agencies, freelancers, etc. The reason why you want to do that is that time is money, and like ramping reps or getting reps aboard, whatever, and like the whole sort of people dilemma is something that's just very tricky, cumbersome, etc. You rather want to get the top people in the space plugged in quickly into your process or sales process and be delivering value, right? So this is why I'm typically would preach, agency like freelance model as a solution type, the first solution, like the human solution essentially to some of your problems. And then the final solution is hiring a person actually into your team, right? So essentially what it means is hiring folks into your business is the last resort, whereas back in the days, like 3-4 years ago, it was typically the first resort, right? Then the AI came and everything came. But the thing is that people like you, Olivier, and bunch of other people suddenly upskilled themselves like heavily in all these systems. So yeah, if you're struggling to implement something internally, etc., you get people like Olivier to do the stuff for you. So that's how I think about kind of, I have a problem and should I think about problem solving? And it's not about sales just, but also about finance and other areas, right? And when you're combining like automations or like these sort of automations, you will start seeing after typically, let's give you an example. Let's say on the solution 2, right? So we build a lot of workflows, automation workflows in NA10. And we have a guy, I kind of call him NA10 guy, that builds a lot of work. And so he has a target typically on a weekly basis to roll out 10 new workflows. So right now we have over 300 workflows already running in the business. But typically after like a month or 2, you're going to start feeling like, wow, it's so easy. It gets easy essentially to run your business because everything is being fed to you. Like it feels like there's a lot of automations, AI agents running around and doing things. And your business just gets easier and easier to run, and suddenly you have this less and less of a pressure to hire new people, right? That's just an example. So let's get practical. What is an example of a solution that you could sort of automate? So let's say in our business, if you're going to sign up to any of our products, and we have 7 products, so a lot of products that we ship, but if you sign up to any of our products and you didn't end up buying, subscribing to our product within 7 days, on 14 days, we have literally the whole workflow for that to tackle this sort of leaky bucket, potentially, as in people just never coming back, instead of relying on humans. So this is why we're implementing what we call a voice AI agent. So the setup is as follows. So we have a lead that has not purchased from us. And so we know the status. There's no subscription. So we can check, okay, no subscription against this particular lead. Then the workflow then goes and checks HubSpot, which is the CRM that we use. And we check all the mailboxes and trying to figure out whether there's any communication with this lead, maybe also on chat support, etc. And especially if there's no evidence that we've been in touch with this person and the person did not buy anything from us, we want to be in touch. So you could say, yes, let's apply a sales rep to this. But you thinking about the sales rep would actually follow the process like clockwork without any complaints and whatever, would actually do that? The likelihood of that is close to 0. Because there's always some issues. So if you have like a streamlined workflow, like an inbound proper workflow, and there is technology that can essentially process that lead, do try and apply that. So what we do is when we have this context, we see there's no communication, then the agent's like, okay, I will call this lead and we'll try and figure out sort of what happened. So what we do is we do voice cloning. We would clone my voice. So the agent would, imagine you, Olivier, you sign up to our platform, 7 days, you didn't subscribe. I'm feeling very sad. And I will be reaching out, but it won't be me. It will be my AI agent that has my voice and it will say something like, hey, Olivier, how's it going? I saw that you signed up like a week ago. I was just curious, how was your experience like with the product? So what we're doing is we're farming intel, first of all, right? And it's very important to understand, why didn't you actually end up buying? And this is fantastic, actually, thing that you're extracting from each user, because you can push that into a Slack channel, whatever else that you want to push that information, and you're trying to figure out why people don't buy a product. Is it like too expensive? Is it has too many bugs, etc., and so on and so forth. So we get some intel, and then if the user says, I just forgot to whatever to check out your product, or just went on holiday, whatever, what the agent will try to do is it will try actually book a meeting with you. So then we're hooking up to a calendar system of a rep. We're checking what's the availability, and we're asking, would you be open just to have chat and get it back into essentially our funnel and chat with the real human, right? So this is where the agent pushes the human to go and speak to one of our humans, and we have 5 people in sales. And so that's an example of a workflow that you can set up, and it's just like works like clockwork, and you don't have to think about asking anybody, like checking in with the process is working. It's always working, because I typically set up a bunch of Slack channels for automation. So that Slack channel just keeps on printing new insights and so on and so forth. Sometimes the insight is that the person just hangs up when they realize it's an AI agent. But it actually sounds really good. So you'll be surprised how far the technology has moved on voice. What is typically a very much a dilemma with founders or sales leaders is they need to unlock their imagination. What is possible? I think the first wave of AI was always on text. Second wave is voice, is pretty good. And the final wave, which just happened sort of 2-3 months ago, roughly, the video LLMs kind of are superb. I can literally, what I can do today, I haven't yet built that yet, but what I can do today, I can take Olivier's face from LinkedIn and I can make him say and do things on the camera literally today. And you will not notice a difference whether Olivier is real or not in that video. I mean, maybe this whole thing is not even real, right? It's all computed.
Yeah.
Imagination is super important. But yeah, that's just an example. And I know I went kind of a bit off track and kind of give an example here. So ultimately, I think from a sales leadership standpoint, if you want to optimize your process, so again, back to these 10 SDRs, yes, typically, the goal is not that everybody hits quota. That's very true. That's how things are. The design is that only a few reps hit the quota. And if everybody hits the quota, that means the whole quota is wrong. I literally had a rep complaining recently about the quota, and that the quota was raised here at Salesforce. Literally a conversation. So I still feel this, with the 5 sales reps I have. So you have to think about it this way. So the best thing that you can do for your business is try and figure out how to increase output levels for the reps that are really good, where the conversion rates are really high, right? And you want to give them as much of a pipe or as many deals as possible, because that's the machine starts working really well. And you want to get rid of those, what I typically say, the dead wood in your company that should really not be there. And so this is also another reason why you need to start implementing these systems, because otherwise, you have quite a chunky number of people, typically 50-60% of your team. So 5-6 of those SDRs should not be in those jobs. And you're far better working with people, again, like Olivier, building these automations and increase the output levels up to 4 or 5 people of the SDRs, the top ones, right? And so that's how I would think about it, right? So you have a biggish team, 10 people, but just say that these are the A players, the 4 or 5 maybe that you have, even the B players, right? So get rid of the Cs. The Cs are typically the 50-60%. Get rid of the Cs, and then build a system or a process that can increase the output levels of those people that you have in the business. And by doing so, even though you're paying maybe higher commission to these reps, you will start seeing that by managing fewer people and even paying the existing workforce they pay more money, it's far better for you, for your company, on all fronts, from a profitability, revenue, a customer satisfaction, you name it. Even managing 5 people versus 10, right? You are, as a manager, just more satisfied with this approach, and you feel like things are just working. And that's a lot of leaders, when I speak to them, and founders, they would rather manage a lean and mean team than managing a bunch of people where that there's humongous number of inefficiencies baked in, right? So I'm just a bit ranting here, looking my own
Mm.
day. But that's how I think about things every time, every day in my business, and I highly encourage that to do for other people. But what I do see the struggle is that majority of people, not so companies, meaning 90+% of companies still don't use any agentic systems, still don't run on something like NA10, still are essentially very inefficient, still are very, very heavy, where they anchor on labor. Everything's kind of labor intensive. Sure, they use some tools, that you should use ChatGPT and they think that's all they need. That's not all they need. ChatGPT can inspire you to change your business, to transform your business. But if you're very serious about increasing revenue levels in your business and profitability as well at the same time, now is the time. I mean, arguably you're potentially late because a lot of typically what will happen is one of your competitors will start doing that, and you'll start feeling the pressure. For some reason, your competitors are far more effective than you are at acquiring customers. It's for some reason it's cheaper for them to acquire customers. Like all these things start happening, and you will feel like you are massively behind. So you definitely don't want to get the delta cannot increase, right? So I'm highly recommend everybody to start looking at these systems. So super important, and it's just also inevitable. Think of it this way: this is something that's just inevitable to happen. This is not like an optional or, I'll do it at some point. No, no, no. This is not something that you keep postponing, because why would you
Future is now.
and better profitability? Like you wouldn't want to do that. So.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, I mean, the future is now. So, okay, you laid out a lot of things here. That's insane. And could you maybe give some like actual numbers of this workflow that you just said, like, the ones that kind of revamp the lost conversions on the free trials? Because I think that's wildly important. Besides the overall fact of like even thinking in systems and kind of thinking in workflows and processes, that's the first step to actually then be able to automate things, right? But let's just look at this example, because I think you might have blown a lot of people's mind with this possibility, and then I know what's going to happen. Then they're going to start thinking I should do that too. But let's put some numbers behind there, because like I'm sure that with your volume and all that stuff makes sense. And now if a founder is hearing about this and they have 10 signups a month, then that's definitely something they can do manually still, for example, right? So yeah, that's why.
So, I mean, some numbers. So, again, let's look at macro level and then go down to nitty gritty items. So, macro level, what we share in our business, we scaled from 0 to 3 million in the first year. First million was scaled with no employees in the business whatsoever. From $1 million to $2 million in annual recurring revenue, we only added a few people on support and engineering because we're just getting too much with customers. But we only started to add literally go-to-market people, meaning accounting executives, CSMs, whatever, only after $2 million in ARR. So just to kind of give you a real example of this business. So you don't necessarily need a lot of salespeople. Naturally, I was handling all the sales and customer success initially, but that's because I had a very good process, very good systems in place, and I was able to scale this company without having any go-to-market people till 2 million. So after 2 million, it kind of makes sense, because from 2 to 10 million, there's no way that you're going to get there without a proper team. So that's kind of on a macro level. Now what is happening today? On today, we generate over 500 roughly demos in the business.
Per
There's only
month.
5 people in the business, plus there's me. So let's assume 6 people are able to speak to customers at any given moment. And we generate about probably 1.5K leads on a monthly basis. So that means every third person typically has a demo with us, meeting with us, whatever, right? So probably 1 in 3, which is pretty healthy. Most of our business is PLG based, so that means we do not assume that they jump on a call. We offer that. It's called sales assist. So you run a PLG motion, means product led growth. So your customers can buy themselves most of the products, apart from one, which is the agent. And we're here to assist. If you need, we can jump on the call, etc. Right? So it's not a problem, and that also works very efficiently for the whole overall funnel. Now, like I mentioned, we have about 300 plus N8N workflows that are in effect. Let's take one simple workflow which has nothing to do with AI whatsoever. So whenever a user signs up, let's say today on our app or one of the apps, one of the things that we do is we do collect the phone number. And you can collect it, you not collect, what it's up to you. Like, it has conversion rate impact, but we also need to fight bots, and that's one of the ways we fight bots as well. But one of the naturally things that we will do as part of the sales process, we'll just send a quick message after that, literally within a minute, and it will be a WhatsApp message that we will send. And we will say, hey, Olivier, if you have any questions, so it's like, hey, Olivier, this is Frank from The Forge. If you got any questions, just let me know. And that's all. So there's no sequence. Like, don't think about that everything needs to be sort of a sequence or whatever. Just be a good
I
human.
have it here. I
Yes.
have it here.
Back
It's
in
true.
2024.
Yeah, exactly.
So yes, so just be a normal human. So Olivier did not get a sequenced, whatever, right? So it's just good salesmanship. Just give, I guess, multiple channels for Olivier to engage with this business with that single human on that side of the business. So Olivier has the ability to connect with me on email because Olivier did get an email from me. Olivier has the ability to write me back on WhatsApp. That was automated, and Olivier can ping me on LinkedIn. You could automate that. I didn't, but you can automate that, right? So that's an example of where these sort of systems like N810 are in play. If you're struggling on the manual front to do these things, automate it, right? So I actually, that message that Olivier that you got back then, that was manually. I was literally manually clicking on the link in Slack. You can make that. You could check whether it has WhatsApp. You can click on that link and you can quickly message Olivier. So you can do that manually, but then I automated later the same process. So
Once you've validated it, I guess, right?
yes, you need to validate that this thing actually makes a difference. So what does that mean, making a difference? So if I'm sending, let's say, 10 emails today, I'll be on board. These are inbound emails. 10 emails on inbound today. I'll be lucky I'll get a one reply back. Now you could say that, oh, in my inbound emails when somebody signs up are pretty crap. But to be honest, it's just that the problem with emails and when you sign up to software, people have a fatigue. They know that everything's automated, even though it doesn't look like, right? So people are not stupid, right? So they're very savvy. But think to yourself, when was the last time you signed up to some sort of software and you got a WhatsApp message? Like never, most people will say. Like,
March 12, 24
yeah, so think from a kind of
years.
saturation level, which channels are saturated, which are not saturated. Where do you typically do business? And a lot of people do business, let's say in Europe, on WhatsApp. So if that's the case, why wouldn't you just, quickly send a WhatsApp message? And guess what happens? We have 10x more replies on WhatsApp than on email. So then the question begs, in your industry, if people are using WhatsApp, why wouldn't you, ask for a number or enrich the number on the sign up with a mobile number and fire away a quick message? Why wouldn't you then push these replies back into Slack for any humans? This is what happens. When the reply comes back, you're in Slack. So any human can reply. So it doesn't have to be me. It was me this time, but you can build a system because we have the system built out where any human can actually talk on Slack and represent the company, and you can build this out, right? So that's an example of where you build out. It has nothing to do with the AI, just a very good automation workflow, not aggressive, drives a far better conversion rate than your typical email channel, and so that's just one example. And then there's other 300 workflows, right? So this is like a top of the funnel example, bottom of the funnel examples, maybe, or mid funnel examples. Let's say we're booking a meeting with Olivier, right? So, and I have no time to check out his website because I'm doing like 10, 20 demos a day or whatever. And guess what? You can just build out pre-meeting notes quickly. So build an N810, a scraper, or you could do it other ways, but essentially give me all notes on Olivier, which potential products I could be, pitching to him, whatever, and give me potential pains on Olivier. Maybe let's scrape LinkedIn or whatever, try to see what his posts are all about. And then you'll see, okay, Olivier does a lot of podcasts and a lot of this. And what does he talk about? So you could extract this context from the internet about this human that you want to engage with and prepare essentially. What's the context of him? How big his company is? What is his profile on LinkedIn? What would Olivier care about? What is Olivier's maybe what's called disc profile? Is he more a person that talks direct? He's more direct, or he's more of a fluff, a snowflake type of guy, right? So, and then you would adjust immediately. So on the call. Because will increase my probability of closing Olivia right on the call. So like these are the things that you want to do, and that's where you need to push your imagination because the tools are there. It's just that folks are just not implementing that. That's what I find. I don't know. What's your experience from your standpoint, having worked with companies? Do you see the same struggle that people just can't even unlock the imagination of what's possible?
Yeah, I think like I even had a little conversation today with a founder who's just starting out and who's like coming to me and he's like, I'm like, because I'm doing a webinar with HubSpot next week, 3 series. And through that, he found me and he's like, yeah, I run this like very boutique style business. Like I only need like handful of clients a year. And like, how should I like use HubSpot and things like that? And I'm like, well, probably you shouldn't, right? Because like you don't not gonna have like volume. So like, just look for a system that implements your process or whatever is the tool that you want to use. You can use HubSpot, but sounds like maybe it might be overkill for you, right? So I think in his case, he didn't even. Yeah, I think a lot of people, they get like FOMO, or they are not focused enough on what they want to go after, right? So I think like, it starts from beginning with the end in mind, so to say, right? And then figuring out like, how are we going to get there, right? So I think in your case, you're clearly demonstrating a high ability to look at a problem and think through it systematically, filter out your options. Even if you explore all of them, it's like, there's, as I said, like some kind of structured approach. And I think a lot of, especially first-time founders or first-time revenue leaders, will make that mistake because, obviously, if you transition out from being a high-performing sales rep to now a VP sales, or like, first-time leader, you probably find headcount important. Probably want to go to your family meeting and say, I manage a team of 30. So you're obviously going to go down that route of like, yeah, let's add headcount until you get calls at 2 a.m. because they are drunk and they butt dialed you or whatever, like, until you go through the pain and the horror. So I think that's one of the things, like, especially in these days, like, yes, AI is here. Yes, that agentic approach to things is here. And like, by nature, people are reluctant to it. There's a lot of constraints and fights. That's why, the same with your sales guy who gets a higher quota. I mean, a high performing sales rep will be, fuck yeah, let's do it, because higher quota means more money for me. Let's go after it. Yeah, Frank, I'm all down for it, right? And then a person who thinks in limiting factors will be like, fuck, now I need to do more. Like, I mean, yes, because like that's how it works, right? Like, I mean, if we got here.
The thing is, I'm building all these systems. So, think of it this way. So like back like a year ago, my reps with my, limited systems back then, they were able to book only 20 meetings a month. Now an SDR at Salesforce easily books 30 meetings every month, like every month hitting quota. Like, so essentially I build systems and demand, I guess, layers that allows you to book a lot more meetings. So if the quota goes up, it goes up because I'm feeding you with pipe as well, through all the automations that are running, right? And that what that meant for me, right? So if I'm able to increase output levels for SDRs, I don't have, and you just adjust quota, like that is more efficient to do that way than hiring another third SDR. So we have two SDRs only. Yeah, that's how I look at the overall business. Now, something that you mentioned there around, speaking to founders, and yeah, so some people just need, a few customers, or because, the deal sizes are very, very big. But I'm always trying to ask, questions like, what is your typical conversion rate from meeting to close one? How many meetings would you like to have on a monthly basis? And that then gives me an understanding what are the top funnel numbers that need to be hitting, whether that's on how many emails I'm sending or LinkedIn messages I'm sending, how many ads I should be running, etc. There's other kind of simple stuff that I still see founders or businesses really lacking. Is I look at their website and and it's like kind of basic stuff, and it's like this will not convert, or maybe the website is okay, but why is it okay? Why you like the simple things like a website? It should be like high converting. If you want to, guys, figure out what's a high converting website, go to our website. You'll see it's pretty high converting. I'm telling you, it's high converting. So you will see some of the components that we do. So let's take one example. We have a component there where on the high intent page, let's say a pricing page, we would give you the ability to call a rep in real time, and you can go and test that out. You go on pricing page, you scroll through, I'm liking it, but there will be this little pop-up bottom right that will say, do you want to call us? Do you want to chat to us, etc. And that's what you can do on our site today. And guess what? We do over 200 calls on inbound today through that widget. 200 plus people call us up and want to talk to us about all things Forge. And this is something where you don't use AI agents, because essentially one human wants to talk to another human. We do get a lot of questions like, is this AI? No, this is a real human. Some of them are very disappointed, actually, fun fact. So you get also these people, but that's just another example. The other example I would probably give is, again, high intent pages, or maybe some other pages. you can identify, people or companies that are on your site, and you can engage with them via, say, LinkedIn back. So these are called the anonymized users, right? And you can engage with them. And that's just one workflow out of gazillions of workflows that we have. So we're always, we're what's called milking the traffic. Do you have a traffic? You need to figure out how to increase the traffic, and then you need to milk that traffic, So that's one way to look at it. And then, like, what is it that you do? All the components on the site to maximize the probability of conversion rate. So if you would, for example, go on the homepage, you can see a few ways how you could sort of convert to us. You can start a trial, you can book a meeting, you can call us immediately on the site. There is an ability for you to build an outbound strategy plan. So that's a lead magnet. So you enter your email address, and I will send you a strategy plan that's custom for you. Guess how it runs? Through a workflow in NA10, where we're using AI to figure out what is the best product set and strategy for your business, as an example, right? Then there's a one which is all about train yourself. So Salesforce Academy, you can go and train yourself. That's another way to push people down the funnel. Then the other one would be just get on what's called a weekly call. That call we call Ask Me Anything. So just a weekly call, very casual. Ask me anything. Anybody turns up. We chat about anything you want to chat about, really. And that's what we do weekly. And then for people that want to scale up, they don't even give this sort of, let's call, low friction. Just sign up for the call, weekly basis, just turn up, ask me anything, and we'll be there. So just think essentially whenever a user, just like I was mentioning about Olivier could contact me via LinkedIn, WhatsApp, and email. Think also about your web property or other properties that you may have also on LinkedIn. What are the multitude of ways how you can essentially do what I call lead capture or email capture? How can you push them down the funnel? So, and yeah, maybe one of the most sophisticated ones, even there's what's called the Google sign-on even on the site. So let's say even if you do Google sign-on and you don't actually end up signing up to any of our products later on, we will send you a message saying, hey, I saw that you actually didn't manage to sign up. Is there anything I can do to help? So that's just an example, another automation, right? So when you stack these different when you're compounding, essentially, this is what's called a compound workflows that you're building out. And you are trying to capture these users and push them down the funnel. When you have so many things that you're compounding, suddenly your website becomes very, very high converting. So this is when we talk now about your high intent pages, homepage, maybe pricing page, right? So there's a lot of cool stuff that's built out. Now you can also think about low intent pages, and here maybe some thought process here is, let's say you're in a category where you have a lot of competitors, or you have a big category, there's a lot of search volume happening. You can start thinking about programmatic SEO even, for example, right? So on a programmatic SEO front, just to give you an idea, last month we launched 5 million pages for SEO purposes. Our SEO is now going, through the roof. Now we have a lot of pages, and you can do a lot of programmatic content, from directories to displaying some sort of data sets. Essentially, if there's structure and data, and you can display that publicly, do it if there's search volume. So it's very important that there is search volume for the stuff that you're doing. And then figure out a way how to down funnel those users, right, to your app or whatever service offering, etc. One thing that we're doing, which is quite clever, is so we have a lot of these intent pages, maybe they're high or low intent pages, but let's take an example of low intent page. Low intent page would be like a blog where a person just reading some review, etc., or like top 10 tools for LinkedIn or top 10 tools for email, and they're reading, and it's not like the super high intent. But what we will do is, if you scroll beyond sort of 50% in terms of the page depth, we will call you. So that's something to do. So we call that auto dialing. We're auto dialing thousands of calls. This is also why it explains why we have so many calls. We're dialing you on the lower intent page. If you're comparing us to a competitor, we call it a high intent page. Again, we're going to dial you. Or if you're looking at alternative, I don't know, Zoom Info alternative as an example, and we have a page for that, we again got to dial you. So essentially, instead of kind of waiting for leads to sign up and go through a process as well, try and figure out a way of proactively engaging with live on the site. Or
100%.
that's just kind of a bit of a strategy there as well, just to think about.
Yeah, super nice, because like you spend all your money, time, effort, resources into generating the traffic or getting people to go there, and then they're there, and it's like hosting a party and then for people to arrive at an empty house, right? It's like you spent like months getting people to show up, and then they're finally there, and then nothing happens, right? Of course you don't want that, right? So it's the same as we do, like how we, for example, make sure that we can book like at least 30% more meetings than probably any of our competitors who would work with the same customers or same type of customers as we do. Like they don't follow up on the replies that aren't, yes, let's book a meeting. Because, even from day one, I believe, just like you said, right? Like, sales starts essentially with a no, right? Otherwise, it's transactional. Otherwise, you are a cashier just scanning the items and, asking them to pay essentially, right? Which is could be like a PLG type motion, but even here you need to kind of go after it and stimulate and like, have this sales assisted motion into it. And the same applies to your outbound, in my opinion. Like, you spend all your time, money, effort into getting people to react, then people actually take the time to react and they say, at this moment, Frank, I'm not so interested, or at this moment, it's not relevant. Well, I mean, okay, cool. So now we can have a conversation about when it would be and then why. And like, I just want to understand, right? Same as you apply to all the flows you've mentioned. It's that kind of curiosity, imagination, and then putting in the work.
Exactly. As like it's very, very important that you should feel from a bias standpoint. Always think from a bias standpoint how they think about the experience, right? So how would they like to buy your product or your service? How would they transact? What is normal for them? So one thing that works pretty nice for us is, so let's say a rep has a demo with somebody like Olivier. Then what happens is within 24 hours, we would fire off an email from the CEO account. And it's like, hey, Olivier, I saw that you had a meeting with Vicky last night. Well, recently. It doesn't have to be last night. I was just wondering, what's your experience like? So we were asking for feedback proactively. And again, that's not a mechanism. So post demo, what is the true feedback that you have about our product, the rep that you have? What's the experience? And it comes from the CEO's account. So a totally different email. And guess what? Again, you're gathering intel. So just like I'm just gathering intel with the agents calling up, suddenly I'm also gathering impact within 24 hours after the demo has happened and trying to figure out whether we have a leaky bucket there, whether the rep was really good or not. And that feedback immediately goes into Slack. That also makes sure that your reps are accountable, right? Because if they're doing a bad job, they know that the feedback that Frank is sending an email is going to Slack, right? It makes everybody accountable, but that also increases the quality standards and everything in the business quite significantly. So definitely have this sort of, when are you firing, when are you doing things that it feels natural from a buyer standpoint that this is actually happening. Don't try and over engineer. Don't try and make it look like everything is just like hardcore automation and then you kind of feel like, damn, this is just a bit too much. Sure, there are some people that are sort of freaking out about some things that we do. So, for example, the fact that you're going to get called on the website, people freak out about it. Like, when was the last time you got a call on the site saying, hey, do you want to pick up the phone and talk to us? Like, it is definitely a shock moment. Somebody told, it was yesterday, they jumped off the chair when they saw that, wow, somebody's calling me. They just did not expect that, right? So yeah, sure, there will be these people, right? It's a bit of like a pattern, like it's meant to be a pattern interrupt also on the side with calling you, right? And it says, Vicky's calling you. Do you want to pick up the phone, whatever? And so yeah, I don't think you can always get it like, you're not going to please everybody with, I think, also the automations and everything that you're doing. But for the majority of the part of people, I think like 95% of the individuals that you're always engaging, there is a net benefit for you and your business and for the buyer that's engaging with you. And sure, sometimes the experience is not going to seem like, oh, that's what people like. But I think that's in every business. I don't think you can also please every single person that is interacting with you, and optimize actually for the majority, right? What do people actually say about you, etc. So yeah.
Yeah, man, that's insane. That's crazy stuff. And yeah, you can't please everyone for sure. I also think it would be inherently wrong to do so because, like, that's one of the things that I think could also be useful to founders per se or CEOs, or something that I'm going through personally or have experienced recently, is that you build your company on your terms and you want to like want everything in the business to kind of be done as you would do it. Like, you set the standards, you set the rules basically, right? And you kind of do everything and you try to build a culture around that and apply that, right? So yeah. Also, Frank, from what we spoke about offline, you've you have online a very outspoken opinion about human powered AI, right? And I don't know what's the exact term. I can't think about it, but you'll say it in a minute. And then offline, you also told me about autonomous humans itself, right? So can you maybe share some highlights on that? Because I think this overall theme is a little bit like really increasing the efficiency, the outputs by building systems and having A players be empowered by these systems to then bring the human approach that is buyer centric, buyer oriented. And yeah.
The typical word I say, just online, it doesn't matter, even offline, it's about blending, learning how to blend humans with agentic systems. Essentially, just think of this way that everything as you're progressing in sales, finance, etc., everything is a blend. It's not anymore pure human or pure AI. You cannot discount humans for multiple different reasons, even regulatory reasons, but you need to blend the systems combined. You just assume from pretty much day zero when you're building a company that has to be baked into your process, because if you're going to do it too late, you have missed a lot of efficiencies and revenue and margin improvement. When it comes to the offline world, maybe before I go into that, so typically when it comes to running a business, any business organization, this is what I learned very early on. It's always about these three things, this sort of this triangle. On one hand, you need to have the right tech. So we talked about the tech. Then you need to have the right process. We talked a lot about process or what you can do in the go-to-market front. And yet the last component is the people. So you can't really discount, but this is the triangle. This is how you think about running a proper, efficient org, business, whatever. And on the people front, yes, it's all about autonomous, what we would describe autonomous humans. And that's what we call them. Other people in other companies, whatever they call them, they hire adults, not babies, right? You don't want to be babysitting. If you're ever feeling that you are babysitting folks, you most likely have hired the wrong people, unless you are designing your company in a way where you are babysitting them. You can also design it that way. That just means you have a heavy management overhead and a lot of people that you're babysitting and telling them what to do. You can design it that way, but that feels very pretty much old school, a way of doing things. There's a lot of overhead and a lot of sort of power or decision making sits with this one person, right? So this feels like old school. The new school is we need to hire what's called autonomous humans. A lot fewer humans are able to make their own decisions within their realm. Essentially, you're the CEO of your own turf. And I give you a turf, you're the CEO. Yes, you're not the founder, but you have your turf, but the decision making is done from bottoms up, not tops down, right? It's also very weird when everything's just done by the founders or leaders, whatever. You should be hiring people that are arguably smarter, better, faster than you, but essentially in this domain, they should be the expert, and they should be coming to you and saying, this is broken, this is how I'm looking to fix it with this timeline, and if this not going to happen, then this will happen, right? And they're coming to you, and you're more of a, let's call it coach, whatever, supervisor, whatever, but you're not the person that's sort of breathing down on the neck. So what is very important for leaders to do is just to give the vision and mission of where we headed, the KPIs that we have, and then hire just a bunch of people that are autonomous. So that's maybe kind of overall how we look at people. We have a quite a framework that we use when we hire people, when they pass through the probation period, and also when they want to be promoted. And that framework consists of 4 pillars. On what pillar 1 is the performance pillar. Are you able to hit your KPIs and then overachieve over time? Pillar 2 is competence. You come into business with X competence, and then it has to compound very fast, arguably daily is best case, worst case, weekly. If you are still the same human after a week and your competence is not improving, we have a problem. Because as the business grows professionally, you should be growing as well. So actually, this is a conversation I literally had this week with somebody in our business. We have compound competence issues, as in the person is exactly the same after God knows how many months. So they have not improved at all from a competence standpoint. And it is a problem. It's a red flag, essentially, the way we see it, because I struggle to see that as this company is going to continue growing, how am I able to put you into senior leadership positions if you're not compounding in the competence, right? So the pillar 3 is commitment. So how committed you are to yourself, and you say you're going to get this done today, and you'll get this done today. How committed you are to your team. You have to be always a team player. You cannot be just operating in your silo. And then the last one is giving a damn about the company itself, right? So it's not the way you turn it to work 9 to 5 and then you clock out and all you're done. How committed you are to your business? We are on a mission to increase pipeline for the companies, reduce headcount. Are you on the same boat? Because if you're not, get out. So that's how you can think about it. And the last one is the culture pillar. So think of it this way: it's not about finding the people that are kind of similar to you. It's about infusing different cultures, different people from all around the world, which is what we have, over 20 nationalities out of 40 people, infusing different culture, different experiences, different ways of looking at the same problem differently. And that actually makes your business significantly better. Where I see a huge problem with companies is when they hire all the people from the same city or same country, etc. They don't know any better because, they're all talking about the same things or same things that they know. And trust me, if you're building a global business, you will have problems.
Mhm.
But typically, that's what we see. And so typically, the more multicultural teams you have, the better your software, the better the experience, the faster they grow, all that jazz, right? So that means you're coming to work, and so the other way to look at culture, right? So from adding the culture, when you're coming into work, you are excited to open the laptop, do the work, because it's not just about working hard, but it's about having fun doing it. So if you're not having fun, then nobody else is going to be having fun. So the opposite of this is you're coming into work and you're always a doubter. You always say everything's broken, you're negative, right? And you're essentially becoming toxic, and it amplifies everybody else. Right? This team is only as strong as its weakest link. And that's how we look at every single performance pillar. And then the way we just, kind of measure it, we try to simplify, like dumb it down, try and dumb it down everything that you do in life. It's a traffic light system. Green, yellow, red. If you're red for 2 consecutive months in any of those pillars, we have a problem. We will be sitting down, trying to naturally solve this. But this makes people accountable because I clearly stated what the framework is. They can self-evaluate themselves. I can clearly ask them in the one-to-one meeting, how do you think you're doing on this pillar? And this week, I had a conversation with a rep. The rep says, I'm green on all pillars. And then by the end of it, we agreed that he has, at least one pillar red. And that means we have a problem. And the rep realized it, and so it was eye-opening. But that's because I provided him a 360-degree feedback on what what other team members think about him, and where the problem was. And we need to have a forward plan, right? So these things need to be treated very seriously, first of all, because otherwise, if you leave this for too long, everything starts rotting, essentially, right? So you don't want to have anything that's rotting in your org. You definitely want to be kind of getting head on. Meaning, whenever you receive the first initial feedback, you just on it in the next 24, 48 hours. Because if somebody has raised this to you, or if you realize that this most likely has been happening for quite some time, so it's already been damaging to the whole org for quite a bit. So you need to action that quite fast. So that's the framework when people join, pass probation, etc. And I think what makes us just slightly different to everybody else is that when people join actually the company, by default, people are exiting from the business. The default assumption is we were not retaining them in the business. And so we, in the leadership team, so there's 4 people, 3 founders, co-founders, and then there's a non-co-founder in the leadership team, where we have to build a business case whether we're keeping that person in the business, right? And naturally, you want to keep every single person, but it's just not how we roll, because the way that we roll is we hire fast these autonomous humans. So, right, so we're making bets essentially. The way we make a bet is on a conviction of 80-20 essentially rule. Do we have 80% conviction that this is the right person? And if the answer is yes, like trying to de-risk to like 90% something, you're just wasting your time. Just get them into the seat, give them the budget, the everything, the access, everything that you need. Think of like a probation period, like a test drive, like a trial period, of a software. Think of it this way. Let's get you in. We have de-risked to 80%. Let's get you in. Show me what you've got. Typically, you will figure out, within the 3 months, you will figure it out for sure. But the best founders, best people managers are the ones that can see clearly within a 2-week time frame whether it's in or out this person. 2 weeks. So at 2-week mark, you can already start saying, okay, it's unlikely that they will stick around. Then you can make a decision. Okay, do we try and turn this around, or do we just let them leave? That's what should be going through your head.
Mhm.
But just think it through. In 2 weeks, you can say a lot of things. It gives you signaling, right? So you're signaling, you're trying to forecast, predict if there's potential. And if you're predicting employee churn, like, is this workable? Are we able to work? Or this is something that, it'll take me years. We don't have years. We have weeks, and you want to be clear with the employee, like, like you say, something's not working out. You have 1 month left. And so I had this conversation with one person last week, and it was not looking good. And I say, you have a month left, and you have to turn the ship around. And that it needs to be a wake up call, for the
Mhm.
people.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, it's not just about what the company thinks. It also has to be it's a dialogue. Employee in the company is a dialogue. So definitely try and figure out what they think, whether they're excited. Because if they're not excited, nothing's gonna work, right? So are you excited about being here? Are you excited about opening your laptop, doing the work, speaking to the customers, performing? Do you take pride in performance? Do you take pride in being good at what you do? Or do you just need a job, and some money? What sort of person are you? We don't have time for people that are what I call couch potatoes. They can work in other companies, corporate companies, whatever. But this is a highly performant business, so high standards are expected from everybody. Myself, my co-founders, I keep them accountable. We have a very high intensity of friction conversations all the time, every day, literally every day. There's you can imagine business is going very fast, but there's also a lot of bad stuff. No, not bad stuff, but essentially a lot of friction challenges that you need to solve. And inevitably, if they're not being solved fast enough, friction happens. Healthy friction happens for the good of the business, the customers, and everybody. And what I'm trying to say with this is if there's no friction whatever between an employee, founder, etc., then I also think something is wrong. Whenever employees are quiet, or they never in Slack or whatever, or they never message you, and there's no friction, everything's got great and dandy. Well, trust me, it's not great and dandy. Healthy friction is super important, because with healthy friction, the outcomes are better for everybody typically.
Yeah, totally aligned, and also have my personal experiences on that, where if you ask for feedback and everything's always good until it's not, right? So yeah, totally get it. Frank, dude, that was massively valuable. One thing that I quickly want to ask on is specifically on the competence part of your 4 pillars. So the second pillar, if I remember correctly, you track it daily or weekly, like they need to be better daily or weekly. How do you track that, and how would you define that? Let's take an SDR as an example.
Good question. So in a sales funnel, right, you typically measure conversions, right? You can measure conversions, but here's one example that I have, which is a real example. So we're discussing competence around specifically the oral skills of the individual, meaning your ability to talk, what I typically would describe, smooth like butter, right? Like me and you talk smooth like butter. We have a normal conversation, great stuff. But guess what? This is not normal for a lot of people. Okay, not normal. But what I expect is that your oral skills are massively improving like over time. So can we measure this in a quantifiable ways? No. Well, I mean, you could say a conversion rate or whatever. But what I'm expecting, like, I don't care about conversion rate. What I care about is if you pick up the phone and you're gonna speak to Olivier, I want you to speak nicely to Olivier, right? And if Olivier also does not convert, is okay, but you're representing the company. You're the extended face of the Forge, the company, me, whatever. And if you're not able to have a nice conversation with Olivier, we have a problem. And so this is something that you need to listen live. So I'll do listen to conversations of my reps, and what you want to look at is not like, did we convert Olivier? What I really care about is like, are you able to have what I call decent conversation with this person, ask them right questions, what problems they have, etc. And then if that is a problem that I can solve for him, great, let's have a conversation. But like, to take it very smooth, it has to be smooth, right? So I'm all about smooth. It has to be like really good. And so that's the competence that I'm tracking from an understanding of, okay, you join the company, if it's very rough, okay, rough waters, but it has to smoothen out, right? It has to get better over time. And so here, maybe that's an example where, I'm not going to say it's about conversion rate. It's about, I can hear it, and I want to, when I hear it after a week or a month, I want to hear it getting better and better and better. And the conversion rates will come with it. But focus on, in this example, on the qualitative component. So we're talking about calling side of things. Actually, in email and LinkedIn, so the text side of things, there's not like, text is text, is like everything is kind of computed. So there's not much you can sort of, sure, you can talk about copy, etc. And yeah, conversion rates maybe matter more there. Like when you look at which copy converts better. But in that point, I would say competence when it comes to text and copy is less about the human, because AI plays a huge part. It's about maybe re-architecting systems, that we have, and the way we compute these emails, the way we send them out. For example, should I send an email to Olivier in English or in French? And it's not just find thousands of Oliviers. Like, are they more likely to respond to an English-based copy or French-based copy? It has nothing to do with the rep. It has more to do with doing proper tests. And guess what? The French copy will most likely win. The reason why it will win is because most of the emails, sales emails, are in English. if you actually compute emails in French and other languages, conversion rates can literally
Mhm.
double in relative terms. So something to kind of take away for the European audience, naturally. Now, the other ways how you can measure competence is by simply talking to the person like in an office, and they're gonna challenge you on things like SQLs, MQLs, conversion rate, funnels, leaky back. They're gonna talk about these things that you can kind of sense that they're very competent about the funnel logic, and it's not just about me talking to customers, right? So you want people to understand how the funnel works. You want them to even do things like, Frank, I attended a webinar last week on email deliverability, and I figured this thing out, this really cool thing that we should talk about. That essentially they're curious, right?
Mhm.
Curiosity drives competence. And however they get that knowledge, there's an internal knowledge in the company, and then there's knowledge that's external. Us listening to Olivier, what does he say? How does he think about customers and the funnels, etc. You can easily compound your knowledge by extracting intel on the internet, attending webinars, going to YouTube, binge watching YouTube essentially on various different topics. But one thing I will say on how you can improve competence as well, apart from kind of doing that, is when you are becoming what's called an AI native employee. That means ChatGPT is your best friend. If you're going to tell me that, dude, I'm hiring you. If you can tell me that ChatGPT is your best friend, because what I've found is that people that are very proficient in using ChatGPT and they treat ChatGPT as a personal business coach, assistant, whatever you want to call it, they are the maxing output. They are so much faster, better. They just get it. Their brain just, kind of is like an overdrive essentially, right? Because they really hate even manually typing or doing like manually things. They use ChatGPT like in tandem, they're blending themselves, with the LLMs. And these employees are like stellar. What I typically, when I typically hear somebody's like, very aggressive on ChatGPT, I want to hire them, So big recommendation just generally out there is fusing yourself, knowing how to use the AI tools. A lot of people that kind of try and stay away themselves, but you're not realizing that you are so much more valuable for any company. You can command a higher pay rate if you know how to use AI and all these things. You're more valuable than just, I'm just an employee and I have these skills and I don't know which tools to use and how to use them, etc. Well, then you are a commodity. I can get somebody else, for a cheaper rate. Try and build a moat around yourself. You have X knowledge. You know how to use the tooling. You're valuable for people like Olivier or for me and everybody. You're not just a person out of school and that knows nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah, so these are the sort of the things that how I think about, what is competence? What are these sort of clusters of competence, like AI native, for example, a cluster? They're asking me, they have one final thing I want to say. They're asking me clever questions. It's like,
Yeah.
damn, it's a really good question. And that's what you're gonna sense from a person from an interview. So today I was hiring 3 engineers. I helped my co-founder hire 3 engineers. And I said the best guy was the one that asked me these really juicy questions. They were really good questions. And then you can sense that this is the person that's the best fit for your company. Sometimes it's not about what you know, etc. It's about your ability to ask very interesting questions that would drive really, because when you're gonna check them in your business, that person will drive your company forward. So yeah.
Super nice. Let me actually dig a little bit deeper in that. This is for my own benefit because I'm trying to hire a lot of people as well. I mean, not a lot, but I'm trying to hire smart people. And what I see really is like, and it also touches upon you saying like being a power user of AI, so to say. But it really like there's two things that I see there. Like you have people who rely on AI because they don't know what to do. And then you have the other sides, like the ones who are empowered through it, right?
Yes.
And they treat it like their second brain. They treat it like an assistant, as you said. They fuel it so it like empowers them, right? And so now I'm, for example, later today I'm looking for an executive assistant, right? And I'm gonna speak to a bunch of people that I've reviewed their application from that I think, okay, this might be a chance, and I'm gonna give them like 15 minutes. How have you found, or what do you think is like the best way? What level of preparedness should I expect from them? So essentially they've applied, they filled in a bunch of questions. I'm almost going to repeat the same kind of questions, and like but that's also something that I want to touch with you. So I don't want to hire people who are like me, right? But there's some certain expectations that I have. For example, I think that they should be able to explain what we do as a company and to essentially tell me what have they found about me, or like they should make me feel that they kind of already know me in a way, right? Is that a correct expectation for me to have, for example, right? What kind of level of detail? I mean, this is an executive assistant role, so I expect an insane level of detail. But yeah, like, what are your thoughts on that?
My thought is always in if what's expected of you, do 110%, just generally, right? So the scope is 100%, do an extra 10%, whatever that is. If your goal is to blow their mind, here's a real example. So I had a mentee. He was applying for an account. He was applying for a job of an account executive at a very big company, billion-dollar company. And he's like, Frank, I'm preparing for this job. I really need some mentorship on how can I crush this interview. The first thing I told him, hey, what if you turn up to the interview and you gonna demo the platform to them? It blew their mind. Imagine you're having an interview, you're interviewing somebody for an account exec, and you're like, yeah, I would love to show you how I'm gonna sell this to you. They're so blown away. He got hired immediately.
Yeah, I've done that.
Another example is the same person. Same person now went on to work at, applied to Salesforce in January. And it's like, Frank, what can I do for Salesforce? And it's like, Salesforce, big company, right? These people are very smart, they know what they're doing, but it's a huge org, thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of employees. And then you're like thinking, well, there's a lot of things that are changing in Salesforce. They are implementing Agentforce, AI agents, etc. And people are probably have a hard time internally contemplating how they're gonna sell these AI agents when Salesforce was all about humans and selling per seat model, etc. And I told him, hey, listen, just turn up to an interview and speak like Mark Benioff, and always reference Mark Benioff. So you are speaking like the CEO to the employee. And again, he got a job. And that's because he was speaking from a point of view, well, he would be like, well, according to Mark Benioff, if we would do this, then I can accelerate for you X and do X, Y, Z. So he was just hardcore referencing Mark Benioff, what Mark Benioff says. So he was literally binge watching all the videos from Mark Benioff over the last sort of 3 to 6 months, how he talks about Agentforce, etc. And then he turns up to an interview to a hiring manager who is probably very distant to Mark Benioff, even though they read all the internal meeting, emails from Mark Benioff. And then he projects the strategy and how he's going to implement the strategy of Mark Benioff in the territory that he was assigned in Salesforce, which accounts he's going to go, how he's going to pitch it to them, etc. But he would anchor it on them, right? So this is where you're like that. Like you would just not expect a person to turn up, and let's say even in our company, I would never expect a person to be interviewing for a job, let's say with our CTO, and then the employee would say, well, according to Frank Sondors, this is what we're going to do. This is how fast we're going to grow. This is how we're going to ship and whatever. Just do something that they would just not expect. Like you're the less than, 0.001% chance that somebody would ever do this. Just blow their mind. Like if you really want to get a job, just think about how I'm going to blow Olivier's mind.
Yeah, true. But that is like a fair expectation to have still, even though I'm not like Salesforce or whatever, right?
Yes, but yes, fully agree. So if I would try and impress you, Olivier, and let's say there's some sort of job and I'm applying for maybe this job, like what I would do probably is I would figure out the sort of, the pains or whatever was in the job description, and I would literally build a clay table for you. And I would come into the interview and you would discuss and I say, actually, Olivier, I prepared a clay table to solve this problem. And they would just open up. You're like, damn, clay table. You're like, and they would just like, this is what I did. This is how we're gonna do this, and this is how I'm gonna make sure that every single little thing is highly optimized, etc. And you're like, damn, this is so good. Like, and nobody else, like, because ultimately everybody's competing for a job, right? And there's other people that you're interviewing. One question that I'm thinking to myself always when I interview somebody: why should I pick you over the other 10 people that I'm interviewing right now? And you make it super easy to pick you because there's that one person that stands out always, right? Stood out because they were thinking outside the box as the default, right? You can sense in people is the always thinking outside the box. He's never or she's never in the box. You have a feeling that you have a good hunch right? That tummy feeling that this is the person that we should be going with, right? That the outside the box thinker. Because if you're paying whatever the money is, you feel like this will be money well spent, right? Maybe they're charging a lot more, but you have a good tummy feeling that even though money was, even though maybe very expensive, this will be money well spent, because at the end of the day, it's not just what the person does for you as a company, but this is an extension of your brand. You feel like that by having this individual extends that, the powerful brand that you have further, right? So, and that's how I think also about some people, it's maybe you can do 110%, or you can just blow it out of the park and get that job. You can feel so confident if you're gonna do this, you are definitely getting the job. So yeah.
Yeah, dude, massively great advice. I think this will have been one of the best episodes so far. So thank you so much. Is there anything else, Frank, you want to add or that I forgot to ask you about?
No, I mean, we could talk probably for days and weeks about different topics.
Yeah,
Just what I would say, the world is moving fast, and don't overthink. Just do it. Do it, meaning transformation is coming in the economy. A lot of things are shifting, and be prepared. So if you're running a business or whatever it is that you're doing in your life right now, think again how the world is shifting in the next 5 years. How are you prepared from a job market standpoint to running a business to competition? Things will shake up. So be prepared, embrace change. Change is coming for the better. And if you're going to be one of the first people in your set of competitors, whatever, to do that, you'll be seeing vast amount of returns compared to anybody other peers, in your set. So yeah, that's all I want to say. Want to find me on LinkedIn and follow just Frank Sondors, the guy with the bacon emoji. If somebody doesn't know what bacon stands for, it comes from the saying "bringing home the bacon." It's a saying in the U.S. with the sales community. Typically, that's what we try and achieve, educating Europeans all about bacon and why it's important. And yeah, that's it.
thank you so much, man. See you on the next one for sure.
See you next one.